Well, good morning, everybody. We've got a wonderful guest today who's a fantastic agent from Huntington Beach, California. Her name is Laura Rose. And I think we're going to be able to dive into this over the course of a couple different podcasts, right? Laura, this isn't just today. We're going to have you on a few times, right?
That is correct. I have to look at my calendar. I'm not sure what the days are, but yes.
I don't know either, but I'm sure that Autumn or Gian or somebody will drop the dates in the chat box before we wrap up this episode so I can say them out loud. But here's what I'm excited about. When we talked about what you were going to share today, because you've really built some incredible momentum, regardless of what the market's been doing. I feel like you've got some pretty good stuff going in a fairly competitive market. So you can tell a little bit about your background, but I'd love to today jump into either what you've been doing locally in your community with the farming, or you can talk about anything else you want to start with. So first of all, let's give people some context. How long have you been in real estate for?
Full-time since 2012. So I'm in my 13th year.
Okay. And did you start out the gate and you're like, this is amazing, I hit the ground, tons of sales, like it was or was it a slow build?
So for me, I came in after having a job, like a corporate. I had a whole career. So I had a corporate job. I was making six figures. I had full benefits, all the things. And so I was kind of proving to my family and my husband that, like I deserved to be in business for myself. And it's funny talking to, especially my husband now, like when I tell him like how my mind was working at the time, he was like, yeah, no, number one, he didn't really understand it. Number two, he was kind of like, yeah, you didn't have to do that. But my thing was I was leaving this industry to go out on my own. And so I said, okay, first goal is I have to sell a house to somebody I don't know. If I can't do that in the first like 3 to 4 months, I'll quit and I'll go back to what I know how to do. Then it was, okay, I've got to, so I gave myself 6 months to sell like 5 houses. Cause I figured like, all right, well that's like, and then it could not be to people that I knew.
How did you pick that? Like, did you have a coach or somebody who gave you that goal?
No, I didn't have any, this was all like me. Right. And so I was just kind of like, because I felt like the gimme was being able to work, like I was going to sales trainings and they were all saying like, oh, you don't have any contacts? Pick up your phone. Like, here's all your contacts, call everybody that you know. And to me, I was like, wait a minute, all the people in my phone, they know me as the marketing director that works for, in architecture and construction. Now I'm going to pick up the phone and call them. And I'm going to tell them that I'm a realtor. Like, that's not going to work, Here, you trust me with your largest financial asset. So then it was, I gave myself a whole year, like, cause it was the second 6 months to replace half my salary. And then the next year, or I would quit. Every single time I didn't hit my goal, I would quit and I'd go back. And then it was, the next year I gave myself the following year to replace my salary or to replace my salary completely, benefits and everything. Then the year after that, it was double my salary. And then once I got to that point, I really didn't know where I was going. And so it was a mentor that kind of like helped me. She was like, all right, what's your goal? And then she was the one that kind of gave me like, okay, well, you should be able to make, for me, it was like 250,000 in gross commissions in X number of time. And I was like, okay. And so then I did that. And I still have like my original vision board, and we were taught to like write on a check to yourself and tape it to the back with the amount of money you wanted to make. And so I still have that vision board from that. And then from there, it was like, okay, where am I going? And so that was pretty much it. I got Rookie of the Year the first year at my office. And yeah.
So I never knew this about you. So you're a very, I mean, not that surprising, but you're a very goal-oriented person.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing goal, make a plan, go achieve it. Goal, make a plan, go achieve it, right? Like, is that's been how you've been. So did you learn that in a previous career? That's just always how you've been wired.
I don't really know, honestly. I wish I knew.
Yeah, just how you are. Yeah, I love it.
I mean, to be fair, I guess my previous goal or my previous career was very goal oriented. My job was very goal oriented. And so it could have been from there. Also, my dad is very much like that, his classic line was, "Don't tell me what you're going to do. Tell me what you've already done." Or like once you start something, finish it. So those were sort of like the things that I grew up with, like being rolled around in my head. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to wind up someplace else. That was another one of his classics. So those are guiding mantras for me to this day.
Make a plan, execute the plan. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're just 12 years in the business. You're an icon agent with EXP, which means like you're basically like you're selling at a high level now. And I know because I've been on other mastermind calls with you, you get a good portion of your business from your farm, right? So when did you start? Because that's the thing that I'd love to start diving into that today, and we can cover a few other things. But no matter what the market was doing over the last year and a half, your farm seems to have been consistent and even picking up momentum in a time when other agents were slowing down. Was that something else was that something that you set about, again, was very goal oriented? That was, here's what I'm going to do. Did it evolve over time? Tell me about that process when you got started.
That's definitely evolved over time. That was definitely something that was came from two things. It came from my sort of obsession of watching real estate in general, just like even as a kid. So I was always very familiar with, I knew who the realtors were that, were in the neighborhood. I knew who my parents worked with, who they had done multiple deals with. So I kind of watched that and I was like, wow, like they had this one realtor that they did like 6 or 7 deals with, and we didn't move. So it was like investment deals and stuff. And I was like, why were they going back to the same person, And then hearing things like, people work with people they like. Nobody remembers the brokerage. Everybody remembers the realtor, people remember how you make them feel, that sort of stuff. So that was stuff that like I really knew. And my previous job was in marketing and sales. So I was already like prepped and primed and ready for that sort of a thing. But my parents had a really good relationship with their realtor. So I kind of wanted to like honor that, like how that was with the people that I was going to work with. I wanted to sort of like be able to mimic that in a way. And I thought that the best way to do that is to like, number one, I wanted to work with people that were strangers, right? So like, how am I going to get strangers to work with me? Well, you've got to be confident. You've got to be an expert. Well, where was I an expert? I was an expert where I lived. And so that made a lot of sense to me. And then I had a mentor that taught me about farming. And then that was when it all like came together. Of course, she gave me lots of advice. I didn't take any of it. Like I took a little bit of it. I took like 10% of it, My farm really didn't start firing off till 5 years ago.
Why didn't you take the advice at first? And did it not start?
Hard, right? It's hard. Like you're broke, number one. You sell a house and like you need like every little bit of that commission to like do what you're doing. But farming is expensive. Farming's a commitment. It doesn't matter who we are subject to, that instant gratification world, right? You want to do something and then have like something happen in return. And that's not how farming is. Like you do 25 activities and then you finally get something. So it took me a long time to really like understand and like make it just like part of like my, like who I was, that like what I'm doing now is going to show up in my business in 90 days. And like, that's okay, or I'm doing these activities and they're going to show up somehow, they're not necessarily going to show up in like an exact transaction, like a 1-for-1. I think that a lot of agents get into that. They're like, I'm going to make all these calls and then I'm going to get an appointment, like how many sales trainings have we all gone to that say like, if you have so many conversations, that's going to be so many appointments and so many and all of that is true. None of that is not true. But farming is a little bit different. So because farming is building a relationship with a community, it's deciding to take care of a community, and you can't disappear. So that's like one of the big things.
When you say you can't disappear, is that tying to like the consistency of farming, you mean?
It's the consistency, and that's also that like you need to be able to stomach the downtimes, because too many agents are going to, how many of us have been taught to like go through what we're paying for every so often. At least once a year, you should be going through all the things that you're paying for and like canceling the things that you're not actually using. And I think that because there's a lot of like forward marketing that goes on in farming, oftentimes that's the first thing that people will stop doing. Well, you're disappearing from the market at that point. If people don't hear from you, you don't exist.
I love that. All right. So do you want to dive into kind of what the things you do in your farm, or do you want to say, otherwise I've got more questions about, actually, before we get into the details, I do want to ask a question. You said you wanted to do business with people you didn't know, with strangers. Do you consider the people in your farm at this point like no longer strangers since you spent these years building relationships? Like how is that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I had a new listing launch this past weekend, center of my farm. 10% of the people that came in, I didn't know. 90% of the people, I know them on a first name basis.
I love it. I'm just taking notes because I got the date, by the way. So it's November 5th.
Okay, cool.
Tuesday, November 5th. 2 weeks from now is when you'll be back on again. So if there's topics we don't get to, like you just said, new listing launch, we may not get to that today. Next time you come back, I want to have you break that down too. Like there's so much that you do. You do so many things that you're also a very systematic person. Is that do you feel like you're a systematic person?
No.
Okay. It's from the outside, it really seems like you are, but
oh, it's funny. The things that people tell me that I am, that observe me, I do not like. I've never been like, really? Me? Super analytical. I've been told that. When I first got into the business, we had to do those personality tests, like the DISC. So I was testing as like a high driver. But then as I got to know people in the office, and then we would talk to each other about our personalities because it was a big thing that we were talking about. I would be like, yeah, I'm a high D. And they're like, no, you are not. You are not. You are like a totally high I. Like, there's no way that you are a high D. And I'm like, no, I am really. See, look at this is what it says. So, and like the analytical is like nowhere. So,
right.
But
clearly, I can hear your voice that there's only so much stock you put into the personality test, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that it's, I don't know, that whole like nurture versus nature type of a thing, and I don't think that I'm self-aware, but I'm not observing myself, I'm living my life. So
I love it. All right. So let's go back to you. You've got to show up in your farm. You got to be consistent. If you're not there, you've basically disappeared. What does that mean? Let's stay like, what does it look like now? And then let's go back to 5 years ago when you first started, because I'm assuming it's different over time, correct?
Yeah, well, and to be fair, I farmed the minute I got my license.
Okay.
I just wasn't really that great at it until 5 years ago.
All right. So start from the beginning then. So you started at the beginning. What did it look like? And then what changed 5 years ago?
Sure. So, I don't know if it was 5 years ago. It might have been a few. Well, yeah, it was 5 years ago. Something changed in me, but I didn't even recognize that it was changing. And then it was something that I heard where I was like, yes, that's my mantra. And I have just stuck with it like ever since. But in the beginning, so one of the things, life is kind of a popularity contest. And if you're going to be a farmer, life is a gigantic popularity contest. Like that's essentially what it is, especially if you're going to start farming in an area where there's other agents. And the reality is that there just are always going to be other agents. The other thing that happened for me was coming from a marketing perspective, and that as a profession, I did my SWOT analysis. I did all this stuff. I picked my brokerage based off of not picking a brokerage that another potential competitor was at. I was very like, maybe I'm in a local now that I'm talking about how I did things. I mean, like I'm doing all this stuff, as I'm getting my license, like, so I'm like ready to go. And then I would get like nervous, right? Because like I came out and then like the other established agents sort of like came and like puffed their chests at me. And they were just like, they'd like call me up and be like, where'd you get this listing? Blah, 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 and so then I would back off, and I should have never done that. I should have never let anybody, get in my head. It's kind of like the like no free rent. Like don't let other people get in your head. And then it was about 5 years ago where I was following all the farming rules for my area. What I finally realized was that I really needed to lean on my marketing background and my business background, which was I was getting enough business, right? I was getting enough. I was surviving. I was certain I was meeting all of my goals, so I didn't have to fire myself. But I really wasn't getting market share. And that's what I was wanting. I wanted to be like in marketing in any industry. One of the things to think about is that from a brand perspective, if you're thinking about shoes, drinks, cars, just do this test for yourself. You're only going to be able to come up with 3 to 5 brands. If somebody says, tell me about blah, blah, blah. So your goal is always to be in those you want to be in the top 3 of the people or the brands of whatever it is that you're selling. So I'm selling myself, I'm selling real estate services. So my challenge is always when somebody thinks real estate, I need to be in the top 3 because they're probably going to call 1, maybe 2. So that was my constant challenge was like, how do I make sure that I'm the person that they think of when they think of my location, real estate, we're selling our house or we're buying our house or our kids buying or whatever it is. Like that's the challenge we all have is real estate, our name in whatever our market is. So what I finally realized years into it was that where I work, I have a very noisy market. So all of the old rules, all of the rules about how much percentage of your gross commission you're supposed to be spending on marketing, how many times you should be hitting your farm if you're farming or your audience. None of that was getting me where I really wanted to go. So I had to be louder than the competition because my competition was established. My competition was able to say, I'm number 1. My competition was able to say, I've been doing this for 20 years, all the different things. And so then I was following the rules and then I just decided to stop following the rules.
Mm-hmm. And when you said the rules, meaning that like the guidelines of how much money you should spend and how consistently you should show up and the things you should do, correct?
Exactly.
And when you said you stopped following rules, I'm assuming you started showing up more often, correct?
100%. Yeah. So one of the things that I did was I read about like the blitzes, like a 6-month blitz. And I was like, okay. And I kind of took that along with like an 8x8. An 8x8 is you meet a contact and you hit them once a week for 8 weeks. Marketing wise, it's not like the 10 days of pain when like you meet a contact and you're calling them every day, you're calling, texting, emailing, like all of those different things. And then I don't have it anymore, but I had this thing that was like how many touches or how many interactions somebody has to have in order to get to the sale, and how like most people like stop after the first 3, and like most sales are like happening like way down that, down that scale. What I'm talking about, right? So I had blown that up and I had it taped on my wall at my desk. So I could see it every day when I was making follow-up calls or emails or text messages or just planning my marketing. So it's just kind of taking all of those things together and just throwing the rule book out and then coming up with what I thought was going to be a really great plan. And I was like, and back to what I normally do. I'm going to try this for 6 months. And if it doesn't work after 6 months, I'm not going to do it. It was a terrible idea and I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. And then I did it for 6 months. And then I was like, wow, okay, that actually worked. So then I did it for another 6 months. And then I did it for another 6 months. And then COVID happened and the COVID market was awful, that 2020 market. And I did have to kind of like I had to look at things. And I guess it was probably like, for me, it was like 2022, I think. I'm like thinking, but so I'm married to a financial advisor. So he like sat me down and he made me calculate my burn rate. So if anybody doesn't know what your burn rate is, like it's basically like how much money you're spending versus how much money you have in the bank and like how much you're spending every single month. And so like without income coming in you're going to go through. And he'd be like, hey, at this rate, you're going to be out of business in 6 months. So I had kind of like change what I was doing a little bit for that. You have to change with the times. I couldn't do like the crazy marketing that I was doing. But then it paid off because he was like, I don't even know how you like went from there to there in like 6 months. And I was like, because everyone else stopped marketing. They all stopped marketing. They all backed off. And I didn't back off. I just changed it a little bit. You know, instead of sending out like a postcard that was a one and done, you know, like the circular bin, look at it, you get 2 seconds of an impression. So your main message better be like the biggest. So for me, my main message is like my name. What did I do? Like message, because I'm getting 2 seconds, right? There's a handful of analyticals out there that are actually going to read the entire postcard. But so then I was like, okay, what can I do that's going to have a little bit more staying power? So I kind of like pulled something out of like that I had started, but then never really put a lot of weight into. And that was a newsletter. So I did that. And then people were actually reading it. And I was like, because I would see them out in the neighborhood and they'd be like, hey, I really liked blah, blah, blah. I liked that thing that you did. I was like, holy
was the newsletter it couldn't have been cheaper than the postcards, but to just have more impact? What was the?
It actually was cheaper because remember, I'm blitzing them for years, once a week. Now I'm able to send them something that they're going to hold on to for a few weeks. So I really did actually back off, and I wasn't sending things once a week. I was sending stuff every few weeks. And then I've only sent a postcard if it was tied to a transaction.
Got it. So you'd previously been sending literally one postcard a week. How big is your farm?
It is almost 3,000.
Okay. So one postcard a week to 3,000 houses. So you actually scaled back the frequency, but gave a bigger piece that had more shelf life.
Exactly.
And are you building your newsletter yourself? Or are you taking a template?
Yeah. So back to the marketing stuff. I'm never really happy with anything that's like an off the shelf type of a thing, but I'll pull inspiration from all of those and then create something. You know, I'll see something and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Why am I, you know, attracted to whatever this is? Why am I sitting there reading a magazine? How is it laid out? You know? And so I'll pull things from real estate. I'll pull things from other industries that are inspiration pieces. And,
do you have someone in the back office or admin that helps you create it, or are you building the newsletter yourself?
No, I'm building that myself.
But I just wanted to throw that out there, not to give you a hard time at all, just because like it's amazing. Like you sell a lot of homes at a high level, but like you're still hands on. Is that because you had that marketing background that you like doing it yourself, or just something you've learned to do over time?
Yeah. So I mean, I used to have employees. I didn't really like it, so I have a hard time delegating. You know, everybody has like weak points. I think that balance is a myth, you know. So, and I really do like a lot of the creative stuff. That's things that I really do like to do. It's also, you know, a challenge. I'm never 100% satisfied when I just like pull something right off the shelf. I always feel like I have to tweak it somehow.
Well, if you have people in your farm that are actually commenting on your newsletter and you're getting positive feedback, I think very few people that have off-the-shelf stuff probably get those sort of reactions. So my guess is you're probably you're spending extra time and effort, but it's creating a quality of a product and marketing that you wouldn't have otherwise. That's a reflection of your brand.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I get those kinds of comments. You know, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And that's something that I had to realize and accept, you know, that I'm not, like, if you're hiring the other people, you're not hiring me. And that's okay. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, you know, because my people are out there and they are finding me, you know, and even people that don't need my services know that they're welcome at all of my community events, at all of my open houses. They feel very comfortable to reach out to me. They know that I'm not like a hard sale kind of a person. And so that's kind of like that building the relationship thing. You actually really have to want to build a relationship with people. You have to like people. Otherwise, you know, probably shouldn't be a realtor if you don't like people.
There's probably agreed. But I just wrote down. So when you come back on November 5th, we'll do community events also, because I want to dive into how you do community events next time too, because that's you do so many cool things with the events. We have about 5 minutes left. In the what percent? I mean, not an exact percentage, but like how much of your business roughly comes from the 3,000 person farm versus at this point, is it outside sources, or is it friends with people at the farm that have created relationships and referrals? Like how does it?
I would say I'm 95%, and it is. I mean, and I'm all over Southern California from connections back to that farm. So if anything, that's something that my business coach is talking to me about like expanding, and so we're starting to look at some like other things, but it's difficult to like really farm at a very high level and also have multiple funnels. That's another thing that I because it's all connected, right? Like it's all connected. Like the open houses are connected, the mega events around a listing are connected, the relationships are connected. Everything is connected. Ultimately, it always comes back to the fact that like that is because I targeted a geographic area and got to know the people.
I mean, you went out, you built you built a new sphere, and they happen to be. And so I love that. So 95% of your business stems back to either homes in those 3,000 or connected to referrals of people from those original 3,000.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So next time we will dive more into like the specifics of community events, the mega open houses, like how they all tie together. We'll have you like break down some real details there. Before I wrap up though, what advice would you give to someone now looking back, if there's someone listening to this who's starting out, like what would you tell them?
I mean, I would say probably like, the one thing that really like changed for me was one of my business partners, one of my affiliates that I work with. We were talking and said this thing, and it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so true. And it was, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but this is how I heard it. And this is how I kind of like, adopted it for myself. But it was, comparison is the stealer of joy. And to what that means for me is like back to that comment of like, if you're going to be a farmer, it's basically a popularity contest. Just do your own thing. Dance to the beat of your own drum, like stay in your lane, like live your life, follow your marketing plan, and your tribe will like find you, because people will work with people that they like. And I spent way too much time getting thrown off track by like being concerned about what my competitors were doing, or my considered competitors, whether or not they were even competitors. You could send out one flyer when I first started, and I'd be like, oh geez, what are they doing? I don't do that anymore. I've got a plan. I do my thing. You like me, you want to hire me, you don't hire me, is all good. It is all good. Like, I'm still going to be here doing my thing.
I love that, Laura. If people have referrals to send you in Huntington Beach or around, Southern California, but again, you are Laura Rose at Huntington Beach. How should they connect with you? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Instagram or Facebook at Laura Rose Homes, and just direct message me on that, or you can always text me at, should I put my phone number?
Whatever you want, however you want people to connect.
Yeah, I mean, my phone number is 714-248-5216. You can text me there, or you can message me through social media. I manage my own social media, so I'll get your messages.
Cool. And if any other agents are watching, if they have questions on what you're doing in your farm or anything, I'm assuming connect, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura, this is great. Thank you, truly. Thank you. I appreciate you taking time to come break down what you're doing. We will dive in next time. My notes are, so if you want to, for next time, we're going to talk about your new listing launch process, how to stop people from getting in your head, which you talked a little bit about there, but I want to go deeper in that. Community events, mega open house, like how they all tie in together. That's what we'll talk about on November 5th.
Awesome. Sounds good.
All right. Good to see you.
Kathy.
Bye, Laura.
Bye.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.